Welcome back to the Hike Strong podcast. My name is Marcus Shapiro, and I'm a hiking, strength, and conditioning coach. Today, we're chatting with Matthew, who recently tackled an 8-day trek at altitude. It was his first ever multi-day hike. What's inspiring is that Matthew prepared it entirely using the free 12-week hiking training plans from fitfortrips.com. He was feeling unhealthy, gaining weight, and needed a motivating challenge. Matthew shares how these plans helped him get fit, shed pounds, and build crucial leg strength for steep descents, rocky terrain, and those dreaded but surprisingly enjoyable stair workouts at his local supermarket. And remember, not everyone responds the same way Matthew did with the free training calendar. If you prefer personalized support, feel free to reach out to me directly for coaching. And now, enjoy my conversation with Matthew. I'm curious how you decided to commit to summiting Kilimanjaro, and what other destinations did you consider before you landed on that?
Gosh, it was something I've always wanted to do. My wife is Kenyan. I've spent quite a bit of time in Kenya. I also used to live in Zanzibar many moons ago as well. So it was always this thing that I wanted to do. You know, it's like with big things like that, you put it off. I've got kids as well, getting older now, sort of 18 and 13, and they take up all of your time. And I thought I needed a challenge. I was reaching a point where I was a bit unhealthy, putting on a bit of weight, and I've always been very good at committing to a goal, training for that, and then getting a sort of big sporting activity done. So needed something to do. Kilimanjaro is something I always wanted to do, and just decided to book it. And then I had a reason to get out and about and get healthy again. So it's always been on the agenda. And it was a combination of wanting to get back to being fitter and, do something I always wanted to do.
That's great. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I've had opportunities to go to Kilimanjaro, but you're a better man than I. So my kids are young, and I was like, I was just too involved in some of the things that they were doing.
Yeah.
I felt uncomfortable about leaving. Looking back, of course it would have been fine, but so be it. On Wednesday, coincidentally, I'll be an empty nester. My kids will both be in college. So,
oh, wow.
Anyway, well, good for you that you made that choice. What were your biggest concerns about the trek? So you booked the trek, and then you started thinking, okay, I'm concerned about X, Y, and Z. Tell me a little bit about that as to how it relates to fitness.
Yeah, so I'd never done anything like this. The things I'd done in the past were not ultra marathons, but ultra walks. So you'd spend 24 hours walking from point A to point B. Did a couple of charity things like that, but I'd never done a multi-day hike like this. I love hiking. I like getting out and about. And whenever we go to Kenya, we'll do a day hike. So I wasn't sure how doing it 8 days in a row was going to feel. And then the biggest concern was then doing that at altitude. So prior to that, I think the highest I'd ever been was about 3,000 meters, and that was for a really short period of time. Actually, no, that's not true. I'd been to 4,000, but again, that was when I was much younger, a good 20 odd years ago with school, again in Kenya. I remember it being harder to breathe, but again, there for such a short period of time, and it was so long ago, I didn't know how my body was going to adapt. So yeah, the concern was multi-day hiking and how my body was going to react at such high altitude as well.
Okay. So how did the program assist you with your concerns, and can you share an anecdote illustrating how it helped?
Yeah, so when I looked into what to expect with altitude, everyone was saying it's all about obviously acclimatizing and letting your body do that, because it just happens naturally. It's a bit of a lottery. Some people will acclimatize well and some people won't. So I just wanted to be in the absolute best shape I could be to make it easy for my body to do that. So the plan, it covered everything from, leg strength to, which came in really handy on the descent, actually. No one talks about going down. Everyone talks about going up. But the coming down was, without doubt, physically the most demanding, especially after you've just spent hours trying to get to the top. If we look at the things on the plan specifically, the incline treadmill was great for, walking uphill at pace, at varying pace, varying sort of steepnesses as well, because you do a lot of that. The leg strength, again, there's a lot of days where you're climbing over boulders. So that really helped with that. And the stairs were brilliant. Actually, the stairs was the bit I was dreading the most, but actually that fell into every Wednesday at a local supermarket and became part of the routine. And I really enjoyed that. So yeah, I built a lot of strength, built a lot of fitness over the period as well. Cardio got a lot better, lost a lot of weight using the plan as well, which sort of helped not having to carry that up. But yeah, as you know, there's lots of little bits in there that sort of help with different aspects of hiking uphill. So they all sort of applied really well to the hike up Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought up those two aspects, and that is descending. Really, any kind of steep descending hikes are challenging.
Yeah.
And the two things that actually contribute the most, in my opinion, are the strength training, as you gleaned from it. Maybe you knew that, maybe you didn't, but you managed to glean from it, at least in this conversation, that contributed to your success. And the stairs. I mean, I work with people. So to make it clear to the people listening, you use the free plan.
Yeah.
When I work with people on a coaching basis, I always recommend stairs once a week. And of course, in the plan, it has that in there as well.
Yeah.
But I find myself frequently having to remind my clients every week. So I'll log in, I'll look at their chart, I'll see what they're doing. And a week will go by and I'll be like, okay, there are no stairs. I understand, just kind of acclimating. Week 2 will go by, there's still no stairs. And then I really have to get on them. And I'm glad you mentioned it. It really is, it's a game changer.
Yeah, 100%. And it's also the double stairs that you put in there as well, and the descent of going down those stairs as well, because it's easy to either just go to the gym, jump on the Stairmaster. It's sort of very monotonous pace. You're using this sort of equal stair height every time. And that just isn't real life. When you're on the mountain, the rocks are all different sizes and they're much bigger than stairs on a Stairmaster. So that was hard. Those 45 minutes of double stairs definitely gets the old blood pumping, but was a much more real world training exercise than using a Stairmaster. Stairmaster would have been great if I didn't have access to the stairs, but yeah, doing actual stairs was brilliant and really helpful.
And as a caveat, I should share for listeners, because I want them to learn the most from this. It's a good thing you had stairs and you didn't make that. It's natural to make that assumption that, hey, stairs and Stairmaster, they're very similar.
Yeah.
What's similar is their movement, but actually from a physiological standpoint, they're not similar at all. So when people listen to this, I want them to really take to heart the benefits you receive from doing stairs. Don't default to the Stairmaster unless you have to go with the stairs all the time.
Yeah.
But of course, if you don't have stairs, then do it, because at least you're replicating the movement. But then in that case, if you don't have stairs, you're probably going to have to do more ruck walks, which is carrying heavy packs, and strength training becomes more important. And there are other ways to somewhat compensate. That's interesting. So how did you come across the 3 free Fit Trips hiking training plans? And why did you choose them over other programs that you found online?
So I found it was mentioned there's a big Facebook group called Kilimanjaro Hiking, which is a lot of, it's hikers as opposed to professionals, sharing ideas, summit successes. And it popped up. Someone mentioned Fit Trips training plan. So I went in, put my email onto your website and got the email. I actually then sat on it for a long time. And this was a good 8 months before I went. And almost didn't use it because there's a lot of training plans out there, but what they lacked was real explanation on each individual activity, which this plan did really well. The treadmill stuff's all explained, the ascending repeats and all that sort of stuff. So I found another plan initially, looked at it, and it just said, hike for 3 hours, or what is far too generic. So for up to 12 weeks, I just did basic fitness, building up strength, and then eventually downloaded the pack. And I actually was so glad I did it then because I nearly left it too late. This was like 13 weeks out from traveling. Then I jumped onto your forum and said, right, this is my current base fitness. Where should I start? You guys recommend level 2, and then the rest is history. So what set this one apart from all the others was just the detail. Each exercise was explained and it followed a really manageable structure rather than being do this 3 times a week or anything like that. So yeah, it just really well laid out, really well explained, and easy to understand for a non-fitness professional.
All right, well, super. I'm excited about that. A lot went into creating that program.
Yeah, you can see it. Yeah.
There are thousands of people that are using the free program, and I'm excited about it and happy it helped you. What was the one thing that surprised you that you were able to do on the trip, which you think the program helped with?
Oh, that's a good one. So there are, I guess the hardest 2 days on the trip is, at least the route that I did, is day 2 and then the summit night. Day 2, you go over this thing called the elephant back, which is, you do about 1,000 meters of ascent, but you're going up and down. So actually your total ascent and descent on that day is a lot more. And people always say that's pretty killer, but it was manageable. So I think all the effort put into the training plan made each day enjoyable. And then again, on summit night, people say, you sort of break it down into steps because you're tired. You spent all those days on the trail, but I never really felt like that. Again, it was just made everything manageable and enjoyable. So you could focus on enjoying the trip rather than having to worry about the 7 or 10 kilometers you were going to do each day. So I guess the surprising thing was being able to enjoy that sort of summit push without having to worry about, feeling unwell or anything like that. So just made everything doable.
Okay, makes sense. Was there another aspect of the training that you did not mention yet that you want to describe how it helped you?
Yeah, the hikes. The hikes were great. I mean, that was they were a weekend treat. So I found you'd sort of work hard during the week with the treadmill, with your resistance training. Wednesday would be your stair days, and then it would sort of treat you with a 3-hour hike, which you'd still work hard on with the ascending repeats and bits. But it gave me an opportunity to, dial in gear, get used to wearing the clothing I'm going to be wearing, get used to my boots, wearing the pack I'm going to be wearing as well. Because the weights that you have in your plan are pretty much exactly, when you get to the higher weights, was it the 15 pounds, I think, towards the end, is the weight of a Kilimanjaro day pack. That linked directly to what I was going to be carrying. Same amount of water, same amount of clothing. I was never going to jump on this trip and then have to carry a heavier bag.
Okay.
So, yeah, the weekend hikes were, real life training for the hike itself. So they were good.
Yeah, and not everybody has access to hiking. So, good thing you did. I tell people who don't have access to hiking to, look, maybe you don't have hills or hikes, but you're going to train horizontally, and we're just going to have to beef up more on the incline treadmill and the stairs. So it's good that you had that.
I was going to say, just with that, I did have that issue initially. So where I live is very flat. And the first couple of weeks would be, 2 hours just walking down the river. And that made it difficult to do the ascents. So I'd replace that with a heavier pack or an extra hour hiking. But eventually someone recommended an area near me with hills, and I was then able to do what the plan was asking. So, yeah, like you said, I swapped it out for something else, which for me was just hiking for longer or putting more weight in the pack.
Tell me about this strength training. Tell me your thoughts on that. I think I put in there enough to create an impact. It's not extremely comprehensive, but I do think it provides a lot of value. Any thoughts on, there was a little bit of balance, there was a little bit of strength work. Can you tell me about just your impression of that, if you think that helped? I know you did mention it helps, but just your impression with having to do those activities.
Yeah, so with the level 2, it gives you the option of, RTP1 and RTP2. I actually did RTP1 for all of it. I didn't move over into phase 2. I actually wish I'd done more of that. So if my week was looking busy, it was normally the resistance training that would be phased out. I stuck to everything by the book, but that was the one thing I would juggle around. And if I was busy, I would cut and maybe replace it with a sort of a heavier leg session. So I wish I'd done more of the balance, because there are a couple of points where balance is important. When you're going up the Branco wall, it's steep. If you haven't got a head for heights like I don't, then it's nice to be sturdy on your feet. So no, I wish I'd done more balance. I'm a bit clumsy, but then the squats and lunges were great for going up and down. And then I worked in some calf training as well, which wasn't in the plan. The calves take a real hit on the descent. That was surprising. But again, a lot of people say it's your quads that are working really hard when you're coming down. But I know the bits you put in there meant the quads were fine. So actually the quads responded really well, recovered every day. I had no issues with those coming down, just calves. I did bring in calf raises into some of the days, but would like to have done a bit more of that. So yeah, they sort of helped get me down without having two achy legs, as it were.
Okay. Have you been on any hikes recently since then? And what are your plans for future hikes? Because obviously, this was a big bucket list one for you. What's in the future?
Oh, I'm hooked. It's just that these trips cost money. So it's a few years off now, I think, to save up for the next one. I don't know. Everyone seems to do Everest Base Camp. That looks like fun, but it looks like an incredible trip. And don't want to put it down, but it feels like you're getting to the bottom of a mountain as opposed to the top. So yeah, I'll have to find something else. Aconcagua looks incredible, but that might be a few years off on training for that.
Okay.
But we'll see. Yeah, Aconcagua would be incredible.
Are there any aspects of the program that you still continue to incorporate, or did you kind of come back and get back to your kind of general approach?
Yeah, so before I moved into the plan, I would do just your usual weights gym session. I'd build in cardio. Oh, and that's another thing. The high intensity training I did, rather than following the plan, I did spin. So I'd do 45 minutes of spin on the days it was asking for the interval training.
Yep.
So now I've fallen back into that. So I haven't used this, but I absolutely will use it again. Maybe put 2 levels back to back. I'd like to move it. I'd like to have a go at level 3 now that I've done level 2. So I think the next trip will definitely be maybe level 2, then into level 3. So no, I haven't used anything again. I've just fallen back into sort of my usual gym routine.
Okay. Any advice for Kili climbers coming up?
Yeah, it's easy to focus on the summit. It's an incredible journey, Kilimanjaro, of anything from sort of 6 to 8 days. So it's really important to enjoy every day. And our guides it was probably lost in translation a bit. They'd say, don't be excited. What they meant is, don't worry about summit night. Yes, summit night's hard. You get up in the middle of the night and you spend 6 to 9 hours looking at your feet in the freezing cold, walking up a really steep hill. So it's hard work. But I would say just enjoy all the other days. They feed you incredibly well, eat all the food. It's all about acclimatizing as best you can for that last night. So sleep well, eat well, take it slow. Anyone who's listening to this, who's looking at Kili, will know the term pole pole, which translates to slowly. It's definitely a buzzword on the mountain. But yeah, just enjoy it and let your body acclimatize. Don't rush it. It's about the journey, not necessarily the destination on this one.
That's great. You seem real excited about the plan. It sounds like you'd recommend it to others. Do you just want to provide any more context and explain why you would recommend it for Kili and, any other bucket list hike where stakes are high? And
yeah, no, I've already been recommending it. So if anyone asks what a good training plan is, I've always pointed them in the direction of this. But I'm not a fitness professional and I really had no idea where to start with the training. So the plan lays it out real easy. It's easy to understand. It's a manageable schedule, which fits into a working schedule as well. I work, 5 days a week, sometimes 6, but it was still easy to slot everything into evenings and then even hiking, you could pop out for a couple of hours of the evening. So yeah, easy to do with a working schedule, easy to understand, well laid out. And the way it sort of would build a base, get a little harder, then you'd have a bit for recovery, then it would build again, meant you were really seeing your improvement as you went through. And you really notice it with your treadmill stuff, the weeks where you do the timed one, and then you think, Christ, well, that was really hard. And then you come back to it and you think, oh, I've actually improved. I've beaten that from last week. So yeah, you see your progress through it. It's just easy to understand, well laid out, and easy to fit into a real life schedule.
Excellent. One last thing. Just curious, what industry are you in?
I work in the motor trade, so desk job, nothing too exciting. So I sell premium vehicles for a living. But yeah, nothing outdoorsy at all.
All right, so just a regular guy accomplishing a major iconic summit. So that's really cool. All right, well, super. So anyway, Matthew, thanks so much for your time. I'm very grateful for the accolades and the positive feedback about the training program. And I think people are going to be really excited and inspired and trust the program and maybe, add some more things to their bucket list, knowing that there is a solution out there like this program. So thanks once again. I appreciate your time.
No, thank you.
That concludes this episode of the Hike Strong podcast. I'm committed to keeping all of the episodes for free. All I ask is that you subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. And don't forget to share this podcast with your friends. My goal is to build a vast community of hikers with the confidence to crush any local or global trail. I hope you will join me in this endeavor. So until next time, train, hike, repeat, and as always, I'm here to support you every step of the way.